And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, such a wonderful place to live, work, and play. You know, it's that time of year in coastal Mississippi. People are sending out their Christmas cards and gifts and well wishes for a happy new year. You know, this is that time of year. They're also giving thanks and taking the opportunity to collect their thoughts and be reminded of the people around them and how much they mean to them. It's a time to kind of take a deep breath. That is for sure. You know, I think some people ask themselves, what can I do different this year? You know, they're thinking about, okay, do I send a card or do I send a gift, or what's a new kind of gift I can give? But some people finally just come up to the point where they want to say, what can I do different? And I think what we have learned, if you look at in Mississippi's giving, Mississippi is like 1, 2, or 3 in the nation in terms of per capita giving every single year. So it's not a rich state, we're a poor state. But the people of Mississippi are giving, and they've always contributed probably greater than their means. And that is such a wonderful story we tell about our state. But essentially, they've learned to pay it forward, because along the way they've benefited as well, and in their times of need. So I think for the past several years, though, we've seen this whole notion of paying it forward be maybe a trend, both with individuals and businesses. So they replace like giving holiday gifts with things like charitable gifts. And charitable gifts can be, obviously it's a form of paying it forward, of course, but it could be in the form of a donation. It could be something that an organization that you support that meets your values, that compares well with the values that you have. It could be purchasing items for people or organizations that need them greatly. One organization that I've talked about here on Coast Vue pretty regularly, not only with the executive director of the organization, but also was one of the people who envisioned this organization, Robert St. John, is Extra Table. And what Extra Table is doing across the state is very, very inspiring. And it's one that I think at this time of year is really good to sort of pause for a second and really appreciate the pay it forward aspect built into Extra Table. And so with that said, I have asked our friend Martha Allen, who's the executive director for Extra Table, to rejoin us. And just before we go any further, let me just say good morning to you. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm wonderful. Happy Thursday to you. Glad to be on Coast Vue.
It's good to have you back. Hey, so for people who may have not heard mine and Robert's conversations about it and our conversations about it, remind people what Extra Table is all about.
Absolutely. We both know Robert St. John is a creative individual, but the day that he founded Extra Table, I believe, was a stroke of sheer genius. Extra Table was founded in 2009 by Robert. The food pantry locally ran out of food. His mom volunteered there. They called and they were like, Robert, we're out of food. What do we do? And being years in the restaurant industry, he did all he knew to do. He called his Cisco rep, ordered food, had it delivered to the food pantry, healthy, shelf-stable, canned good items. And he did that for probably 3 years on his own. And then he realized that Mississippi has such a real hunger problem. And sometimes it's not that the pantries are out of food completely. They just don't have quality food that makes meals on the shelves. And Robert formed Extra Table. So our mission is that we fundraise in order to purchase new, healthy, and shelf-stable food that we deliver for free, completely free, to our food pantry and soup kitchen partners every single month. And the beauty of the design of how Extra Table works goes even one step further. Much of our food has pop tops and tear tops, considering the individual, the end user receiving the food. But also we know that our food pantries are staffed with, retirees that don't need to be picking up heavy items. So the Extra Table delivery guys roll the food all the way into the food pantry and actually put it on the shelf. So we are purchasing food for 55 food pantries and soup kitchens in 2022. So fighting hunger and obesity hand in hand.
Well, you've done one of the really interesting stories is the way you've been able to develop relationships with corporations and others along the way. I remember, for example, after the pandemic started and buffets weren't going to be a big deal at some of the casinos, you guys partnered with them, and a tremendous amount of food came back to the extra table. But you're good at taking advantage of those opportunities when they occur. Give some examples of that.
I don't know if we're good at taking advantage or too crazy to say no. But we have a little slogan internally: no food goes to waste on our watch. So the answer is yes. We're going to figure out how to rescue that food and how to get it into the hands of those that need it. So as your casinos closed on the coast, we brought in armies of volunteers and got that food out to food pantries and soup kitchens that could use it. We've worked with the casinos on the coast to use them as volunteers. We passed out turkeys at the ballpark, the Biloxi Shuckers ballpark right there at Thanksgiving. It's just been those coastal partnerships are true and strong, and they have grown over the course of COVID. We served 7 cities throughout COVID, 7 food pantries across the coast, and we've added one. And in our March of the Mayors program, 10 mayors supported Extra Tables hunger initiatives. So with every dollar you donate to Extra Table, we can provide 5.9 healthy meals. So it's an honor to work here. It's fun to come to work every day.
Well, you've done a good job, and you're a terrific spokesperson for the effort. What I love is Robert's passion for this. And, for people who are not regular listeners of Coast Vue, Robert is an entrepreneur in Hattiesburg, a restaurateur. But he goes beyond that. He's doing multiple developments. He's had on Mississippi Public Broadcasting a show called Palate to Palate. He's now producing shows. He's writing books. He's written numerous cookbooks. But most recently, he wrote the definitive book on Walter Anderson. And it's an amazing book. I haven't actually laid my hands on it yet, but I've had Robert on the show talking about it. And, of course, the documentary that he did with his partner on Walter Anderson is one of the most incredible documentaries I have ever seen on a local artist. It really helps you come to grips with the reality that once the wider art community comes to understand Walter Anderson and how gifted he was, not just as an artist, but a philosopher and a poet, just a thinker. He will be discovered, and the price of his art, I'm sure, will go up. But Robert finds the time to do these things. And I often say to him that, if you want to find a busy person to do something, if you have something that needs to get done, find a busy person to do it. And Robert fully fits that description, doesn't he?
He does, absolutely. And everyone is always quick to ask me, how involved is Robert in Extra Table? And I'm like, well, I either hear from him at 6 a.m. before I get to work each day, or as he walks past my office into his office in the mornings, he knocks on the door and is like that deep voice, tell me something good today. And so he's extremely involved in Extra Table. And, Extra Table is like the St. Jude of the feeding world, so to say. Our office is in the front corner of Robert's corporate headquarters in Hattiesburg, and it's free to us. So lights, water, bathrooms, copy machine, internet, phones, everything Robert gives to us, all the office supplies. So the only thing separate from food funds that we raise is to cover the salary of the 2 employees that it takes to run this statewide effort.
And you do a separate fundraising effort to do that, so that 100% of the contributions end up going directly to food, which was his mission all along. And it's amazing that the organization has not only stood the test of time, but it's literally continuing to ramp up because the needs are so significant. It's hard to understand the needs and not want to aspire to the volume necessary to fit the needs, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Amidst COVID, and it hasn't changed recently, our food pantries have reported a 30 to 50% increase in the number of individuals served or requesting services. And so many people amidst COVID came for the first time. And while the numbers are starting to plane off, they're at such an elevated portion compared to what they were prior to COVID. So our food pantry volunteers and the staff that are there are doing an incredible job. And Extra Table is just proud to be the partner supplying that constant amount of good, healthy food that mamas and daddies are proud to put on the table to feed their children.
Well, we're talking with Martha Allen, who's with Extra Table. She's the executive director there. It's an organization that has really evolved over time, but the passion that drives it, Martha and Robert St. John, who daily are trying to figure, okay, how can we serve more? How can we get more people involved? How can we find more opportunities to have contributions to this organization so we can fit the many needs? You've got a major fundraising effort that's underway as we speak. And when we come back from break on the other side, we'll talk about the Mary, Mississippi auction that's designed to benefit Extra Table. And then we'll talk about other efforts underway. I want to hear more about volunteers and how, if someone's interested in being a volunteer, how do they get involved in Extra Table? And specifically as it relates to coastal Mississippi, how does that look as it relates to Extra Table? But when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Martha Allen. We'll see you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
It's 2021 and J. Allen Toyota still has a lifetime warranty on all new Toyotas. They all come with Toyota Care. We've got a great rental department. We've got great used cars. We've got a parts and service department ready to help you. So when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi. If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Super Talk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. Super Talk Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on Super Talk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
We're lucky here in coastal Mississippi to have so many leaders who are doggedly determined on making their contribution. I mean, they're learning about what's happening in the community, where the needs are, and they're super focused on trying to fill gaps. And they come in so many walks of life. It could be someone involved in their neighborhood. It could be someone giving their time to kids that need mentors. It could be being involved in United Way or Baco McCarty Foundation or any number of organizations. But as I've said so many times, President Bush referred to the 1,000 points of light. It takes 1,000 points of light to make a community tick. You can have all these formal organizations, and they're all doing incredibly well in the nonprofit world. But you can, even if they cross over and serve the same need, that's fine, because the needs are that significant. None of them could ever solve them all. But then you have volunteers that step up and say, oh, wait, there's a really big need here. We need to do something over here. And the way that Extra Table came about, Robert St. John hearing that the food pantry had literally run out of food. And for the next 3 years, he's now focused on making sure they have the food they need, working with the partners that he has through his restaurant business. But he knew something needed to be formally formed, and Extra Table came as a result of that. And Martha Allen is the executive director, and they are really working hard to serve all across the state. Hey, Martha, before we talk about the Merry Mississippi auction, this is day 2 today. Before we do that, though, talk about how Extra Table plays out in coastal Mississippi.
Yeah, so we have 8 food pantries and soup kitchens across coastal Mississippi, and we've been serving the coast for almost as long as Extra Table's been in existence. So I would say we're in our 13th year, so I would say we've been on the coast probably 9 to 10 years, and we love coastal Mississippi and all of our partners there. We have many board members that reside on the coast, and so we have a very a strong and vibrant support system. And those food pantry directors that you guys have, they are awesome and energetic and so accepting of the help and support that Extra Table can offer. And we serve pantries from Pascagoula to Bay St. Louis to Gulfport and Biloxi. We're all over the place.
Well, of course, I've had representatives from many of them here on the show, and they all describe it sort of the same way. That volunteers come from all walks of life to start out with. Some are just people who just want to give. Some are people who might have had some trouble in their lives at one time and are having to give community service, and this is what they picked. And what one of them pointed out to me was that when you go there, you really don't know where the volunteers come from. They're there. They're jointly focused on improving the situation. And he says that once you see the look in someone's eyes when they get food, I mean, there are a lot of families that are and I mean individuals as well who are hungry. And when you see them be satisfied, it's hard not to want to come back in the next day and do it again and feed somebody else, or maybe even the same families, and make them happy. The needs are great, and it's hard. I mean, it makes it harder not to be focused on this when you have to look someone in the face and see how much having this healthy, in the case of Extra Table, healthy food served to them. It's really important, isn't it, Martha?
Absolutely. And talking about volunteers and the strength of volunteers and the importance, I was watching the movie Pearl Harbor the other day in remembrance of that great day passing. And one of the quotes on the movie really caught me that I've never noticed before was, "There is nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer." And that really stuck with me, because I guess I've never watched it in this role as executive director at Extra Table, and how volunteers are the key component to what we do every day and how our food pantries provide the food. Without volunteers, we can buy the food and we can get it to the pantry, but we can't get it into the hands of the individuals that so desperately need it. With 1 in 5 Mississippians hungry, it's an incredible feat to have enough volunteers, and to everybody needs to make time to volunteer. And there's just, it's the giving season, and a lot of people are out serving right now, but volunteers are needed year round. That the joy that you get from giving and serving is unsurpassable by anything else.
Throughout my career, I've always volunteered my time for throughout my career. And as I got further along in my career, it was in major organizations like the Business Council or the Governor's Commission on Recovery, Rebuilding, and Renewal, which incidentally is where I met Robert. He was on the commission with us, and didn't miss meetings and was heavily engaged. But I had the benefit of having a terrific mentor in Roland Weeks, who said that to the extent that we stayed focused on getting involved in the community, it would enable the newspaper to more reflect the community. So, if you sit in an office and you just worry about the business and you're not involved in the community, then you're going to be out of touch with what the real reality of the community is. And the more you're involved, the more in touch you are. And I never forgot that. And there's also the benefit that comes from volunteering, just the in your own heart and soul, how it matters, what it means to make a difference. And I have to tell you, after Katrina, those of us who were involved in the recovery effort, we knew we had to get this right. And I mean, there was little time to sleep. There was little time to spend time with our families. It was all about developing a plan and building, the consensus around where we go from here, and working with Haley Barber to get this thing done. And it was an amazing time. But man, I often found myself saying, I knew why I was there, and I was willing to give. But I watched other people just give. And I often wonder, man, what motivates them to want to give so much to the community? I know you see people like that every day, but it's true. So anyway, let's shift gear. Oh, were you going to say, I didn't want to cut your thought off.
No, there's so many ways. People don't realize, going into a food pantry or stepping out on your own can be so intimidating for so many. But there are so many different ways to volunteer. We have volunteers that come in the office that just want to write thank you notes. We have volunteers that come in the office just to put stamps on things for us. We need a helping hand at the warehouse. We need phone calls made. And then we need those actual physical volunteers at the food pantries. There's so many different levels of work if you really think in how a nonprofit operates. And we need extra hands at every turn. So it's really important that whatever your time and talents are, that you stop and offer that to the food pantry. Jeff Bertucci at FEB Beer Distributing there on the Gulf Coast is a board member of ours, and he's always like, oh, I want to help with this because I've got the knowledge. I do that on a daily basis at work for my company. Let me share insights with you to help make Extra Tables logistics or warehousing more streamlined and efficient. And so no matter where you are in the work world, or if you're a stay at home, you have something to offer Extra Table and those hungry in Mississippi.
So if you're thinking about, if you're hearing this and say, this is something I might be interested in volunteering for, just go do a search on Extra Table. You'll find everything you need to know, and you'll also find how to get in touch with Martha. So this is the second day of Merry Mississippi Auction. Tell me about that, and tell me how this thing's going to play out.
Absolutely. So Merry Mississippi, it's our third annual auction, and it is the most Mississippi items and experiences that you can simply not get your hands on at any store or website or whatever. These are the VIP of Mississippi for Christmas 2021. So they are going fast. So pay attention and mark your calendar. You can go to extratable.org and you can see that we have 12 items. But the key here is, one item goes up every morning for bid at 6 a.m. and at 8 p.m. that item is sold. So you gotta watch closely and bid fast and bid big in order to win some of these items. And Ricky, this one was thanks to some advice from you. As a little Delta girl, I love to hunt and fish, and have always heard about the Alligator Lottery in Mississippi, and that you just can't go hunt an alligator. But how cool to reel in something that's like 10 to 12 feet long. I mean, that's just a feat in itself. So Extra Table has an alligator hunt thanks to Terra Wildlife and Corey Hunt. So we have an alligator hunt for one, and you can bring 2 guests with you. So overnight accommodations for the hunter, food and accommodations are all provided. The guide is provided. When you reel that alligator in, they'll even process it for you. So what a father-son, memory, the guys that sit at the deer camp every weekend. Have you killed an alligator?
Yeah. Here's the thing. Terra Wildlife, just do Terra, T-A-R-A, look it up, Terra Wildlife. The accommodations we're talking about are really nice. I've been to several board retreats there. I've obviously been there hunting before. It is a very, very special place.
It is F-I-N-E, fine. It is awesome. And Mr. Gilbert Rose is super informative and supportive and helpful of what they are doing, what their mission is out there at Terra. And so this alligator hunt is something non-traditional, but something they offer to those that are frequent hunters at their facility. So he was very generous for Terra to host Extra Tables auction winner. So this is like,
and that's what's up there today.
Value.
So the alligator hunt went up at 6 a.m. this morning. It's going to close off at 8 p.m. tonight. So if you're interested in bidding for this, go to extratable.com and participate in the Merry Mississippi auction. Hey, in the short time we have left, one of the cool ones you have is a Walter Anderson, Day in the Life of Walter Anderson. Talk to me about that.
One of the cool ones. They're all insane. I can't figure out which one's my favorite, but with the release of Robert's book and the great connections that he's made, and Robert St. John, again, is the founder of Extra Table. So we have item number 9 is a day in the life of Walter Anderson. You'll load a canoe that morning with my friend John Ruskey of Quapaw Canoe, and you and 3 friends will venture out to Deer Island. Anthony Thaxton, who produced the book and documentary with Robert, will be along with you. Anthony's also a watercolor artist. So you'll do all the things that Walter Anderson did and head back in for an all access tour by John Anderson. He'll be with you all day. So it's going to be absolutely amazing. But we've got Leanne Morgan tickets, Marshall Ramsey caricature, more hunting, Ryder Cup tickets, everything. So deer hunting, duck hunting, it all.
Extratable.com. It's called the Merry Mississippi auction.
.org.
Yes, thank you. Extratable.org for sure. Martha, it's been a pleasure to visit with you today, and good luck with your fundraising activity.
Thanks. We love the coast and are happy to be down there feeding your hungry neighbors.
You bet. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to SuperTalk.msGulfCoast.com.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk Mississippi.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on Super Talk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Get the scoop on what happened in college football and what to expect in the NFL. Each Sunday on Sports Sunday with Michael Borky. Get the story behind the stats, 8 to 10 a.m. on Super Talk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and watch the show on supertalk.tv. Super Talk Mississippi. We're more than just words. This is where the story of your state is told. Proud to cover the Magnolia State like nobody else. Super Talk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking
Yeah.
to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter. Has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard. And,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on Super Talk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. Now we're going to shift gears and bring in my friend, Dr. Nicholas Conger, who's an infectious disease doctor from Memorial, who's been on the show so many times. It's been a while since we visited. And the reason why is because things as it related to Delta were really manageable and it's subsided to a great extent. Now we see Delta taking some northern states by storm, but that's not the case here. If you go do a search, though, in just any major news source, the Omicron is being talked about widely now, and you would think that the sky is falling. So what I want to do, what I like about my conversations with Dr. Nicholas Conger is we take all that horn blowing that the national media is doing, and we try to make sense of it, try to bring some common sense to the conversation. But before we go any further, let me just say welcome back, Nick. It's good to see you, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me back.
So what I want to do is, I want to do this in a couple of different stages. We'll come to Omicron in just a second. I want you to give an update on Delta. I have some questions about the booster that are probably practical questions you get every single day. And then I want to remind people, and I'll come back to this in a second, remind people what you said all along, that because you're an infectious disease doctor, you understand this, that mutations are expected, and that as time goes on, your hope is that they will be maybe less severe. We'll come back to that in just a second. But it does appear that Omicron sort of fits into that framework that you have been talking about from the beginning of the show. So we'll come back to that in just a second. What's the latest as it relates to Delta?
Okay, so, let's do the latest as it relates to here, I guess, with Delta being the predominant strain. So, we enjoyed a good month or so with hardly any cases, and which is crazy, Ricky. We had 120 patients in our hospital every day for about a month at the peak of the Delta outbreak here. And then we had maybe one a week, and so, but now we're seeing a slight uptick. We have 3 or 4 people in the hospital. Fortunately, none of them are super, super ill. None of them are in the ICU dying, which is good. And so I think that we talked about, it might be a little bit of a bump in the winter. And I think we're getting maybe the beginning of that. I do think there's a lot of quote unquote herd immunity, which we've talked about, where a lot of people either recently had Delta or their vaccination status has enough immunity to where I don't think we're going to see anywhere near the bump we saw before. And almost all of these cases we're seeing are related to travel during Thanksgiving. So,
wow. So again, not to be unexpected, particularly if you see what's happening north of us. There's some dire situations coming out of some northern states, but they did not have the bump we were having early on, but they're seeing it now, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And so what I think that, and we need to keep this in mind, like not only is every strain different, but the way it impacts each community is going to be different. There's not one size fits all. I think the Delta hit us harder and faster because we had a much more unvaccinated population, and it was so contagious that it just ran through the unvaccinated population. And then you had some breakthrough cases and some vaccinated folks, which Delta had more than the original variant. And then we had this huge peak, and then it died away. It's very different in places where there's higher vaccination percentages. So if you're 80-90% population vaccinated, and you're still going to have those breakthrough cases, but the momentum is going to be much slower. The peak is going to be later because the vaccinated patients make it a slower process, if you will. Now, they should still have less deaths and less hospitalizations because they have a higher vaccinated population to begin with. But it's just going to be a different peak at a different time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been really focused on, as a result of what you guys have experienced there, Singing River Hospital System, same thing. Really, it's an issue all across the state. This whole notion of nurses and this nursing shortage and what we need to do to deal with this. But you're seeing stories now being written from states up north of us that are having the same issue. And this is, I think that this is one of the byproducts of COVID, something we're going to have to wrestle with. Okay, I want to shift gears a bit. Okay, now let's talk about vaccines. Of course, you have Moderna, you have Pfizer, you have J&J. I had a Pfizer. And in earlier conversations that you and I get 2 shots from Pfizer, also had COVID early on, October 2020. It had Pfizer shots in March. But the studies are showing that Moderna tends to be more effective than both J&J and Pfizer. Is that still sort of where we are?
Yes, and I think it has to do with the dosing. And again, when people say, well, these were rushed out, and I hesitate to use that language. They weren't rushed. There was safety studies done, but they didn't have the time you would normally take to get the exact dosing right, the exact interval between shots right. And so, the Moderna is a much higher dose to begin with than the Pfizer. So it does make sense that it might work a little bit better, but you may also get a little bit more side effects because it's a higher dose.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you the question that I have personally, and my wife as well. If we got the Pfizer, the 2 shots for Pfizer, should we go get a Pfizer booster, or can we get a Moderna booster and actually take it, our protection higher?
So I don't think it matters either way. And again, the studies haven't proven that mixing it. So there's enough data out there to show you that mixing and matching is not wrong and it's not bad. It's probably better to get the booster with the same vaccine you got, just for purity's sake, because you have had that shot, you've tolerated it before, and it also kind of helps when we analyze the data, like people who got this shot and got the same booster. And I don't think there's enough evidence to say, yeah, you're going to do better with this booster, so preferentially pick this booster out of the other. So I think they've kept it very generic because we just don't have enough data to, with definitive answer, tell you, yes, go get this booster over the other. So the recommendation is get the booster with what you had. But if you can't, if they don't have it in stock or there's a shortage, it's okay to get a different one.
Okay, so I'm a healthy 64-year-old. I had 2 Pfizers and I've had COVID. Do I need to get a booster?
You want the Nick Conger answer or the CDC answer? The CDC,
I want the Nick Conger answer.
So the CDC says get a booster. I think the people who've had COVID, again, these studies haven't been done. There is a good broad immune response to having COVID, and I say that I think that natural infection is better than vaccine if you compare them head to head. But vaccine's better if you've not had the infection because you don't want the infection. But if you've had COVID, I really think those patients need 1 booster, and then we need time and data. I know a lot of people who've had the COVID who've had 2 a vaccine and then the second vaccine to get quote unquote fully vaccinated with Pfizer and Moderna, and they have a lot of side effects with that second shot. It seems to be unnecessary. It seems to be excessive. I know young, healthy people that miss work for a week with that second shot, again, after COVID. So yeah. I think that you probably are immune enough. And so I wouldn't sweat it. I think, again, we don't know the right interval for the booster. I like intervals that make sense to me compared to other shots, like a year. I'm not sure why we're rushing to get 3 shots within a year. So, and I know that there's this push in the country to have as much, antibody levels across the community as possible to try to stop all and every case. But I think individually, we haven't teased out what to do with people who've had COVID.
Interesting dilemma, and it has to do ultimately with the decisions you have to make within a very compressed amount of time that's best for the total population, and based on the information that you have in front of you, which is why the CDC tends to play it a little bit safer, would you say?
Yeah, they play it safer, and by nature of the business, they have to be one size fits all. And it may not be that one size fits all. In this case, I do wish that there was more attention paid to people who've already had COVID. I feel like we should have studies by now. I saw a guy just today or yesterday for the first time who had a second infection, what I thought was a true second infection. That's actually pretty rare. It was an older gentleman who has some immune issues, and it's been over a year since his first infection. So it is pretty rare to get that second infection. And it is so dependent on the immune system of the person. So you said 64-year-old who's healthy. If you were a 64-year-old who had cancer and on chemotherapy, I would have given you a different answer. So again, I think that people who've had natural infection, let me say this clearly, I think they should at some point get a booster, because I don't want them to get a second infection. But the timing of that booster, it's unclear.
Okay. So when you say booster, you don't mean
or get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. Because booster would be a third shot. Right.
That's correct. And I just confused your audience. To me, getting a vaccine after a natural infection should really be considered a booster. I wish they looked at it that way. But we talk about getting the vaccine serious. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now put your infectious disease doctor hat on for a second. Okay. Before we talk about Omicron, I want you to remind our audience what you've always said about the natural progression of the mutations and what to expect. Talk to me about that.
So, viruses, bacteria, they are organisms that are interested in survival. Right? All organisms on Earth are interested in survival. And if you're a virus or a bacteria, if you're so aggressive and you kill your host, which is us that live in our bodies, if you kill your host or make your host so sick that that person who's sick doesn't want to go out, doesn't want to interact with others, then your transmission is going to go down, right? If someone gets so sick they die or they stay in their room, the virus won't transmit. And so over time, these things tend to slowly attenuate such that they spread more readily. So people are mildly ill, so they'll go out and spread it to others, and they get less and less aggressive over time.
Let's do this. We'll come back after this break, and we'll continue to talk about why that's important as it relates to Omicron. This is Dr. Nicholas Conger, and we'll see you after the break.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Del Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera flips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
When it comes to the outdoors, we are one. We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the great outdoors. So let's talk about it. Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews. Mondays starting at noon. Here on Super Talk, Mississippi. Presented by the Foundation Protecting Our Outdoors Heritage. Listen or watch the show anywhere you get Super Talk, Mississippi. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I've really been looking forward to catching up with Dr. Nicholas Conger, an infectious disease doctor from Memorial, who's become a really good friend of mine over the last couple of years as we've explored learning as much as we can about this ever-changing pandemic around the world. I mean, a lot of information is coming out of South Africa today as it relates to Omicron. But before we transition to a full-scale discussion about Omicron, I want to come back to what you were just saying, and that is that as this thing mutates, you have said before, and you just said that you would expect it to potentially become more contagious, but less severe. And that's essentially what you said, correct?
Right, correct. I mean, that is, that should be, I guess, the aspirational goal of every virus, right, is to be readily transmissible but not deadly so that it spreads, because that's generally the goal of nature is to propagate itself.
Okay, so what we're hearing out of South Africa, and what's amazing to me is the CDC waits on all this specific kind of proof. In the meantime, they continue to sound the alarm and do these travel advisories and all this stuff. You look at if you turn on any of the major media today, you would think that the sky is about to fall again. And the early data coming out of South Africa is not. It's certainly that this is very contagious, just as you just pointed out, but that the cases of severe cases is down. Right. So how do you view what you currently know about Omicron?
So, what you just said is what I am seeing and reading. I'm trying to see and look at and watch from the people who are seeing it on the ground. And I was kind of shocked when I heard, one of the directors, like a local health department official in South Africa speak, because it was in stark contrast to what we were hearing in the media. And that person was essentially saying that the cases were identified because they were so mild. They were testing positive for COVID without pulmonary symptoms and without GI symptoms. And those have been the two most prominent symptoms, the shortness of breath, the pneumonia, and then the not feeling like eating and drinking. They were patients who were presenting with, I just don't feel well and I'm tired and fatigued. And then they got better quickly. And so even that person was saying, I don't. Now, of course, they don't want their country to be isolated from the rest of the world. But that person was saying, I don't know why these first world countries are shutting us down. This is so mild.
Yeah.
Attention is so mild, and then, again, the devil's advocate answer to that is, we don't know what it would do in an older population because there's more older people here than there are in South Africa. Okay, we don't know what it would do, I guess, for a broader, older population, but I don't think that we have anything to suggest that we should assume the worst. But that's the posture you see public health officials take. Well, we need to assume the worst. So I don't know why a virus would be super mild in young people and super deadly in old people, just kind of out of the blue, So I think a wait and see approach is better than sounding the alarm, because you know what? If they sound the alarm too loud on this, and it not only ends up being nothing, but it ends up being something that might actually be good to have a contagious strain that's kind of like the common cold, then I don't think people will listen to them again.
Yeah, there is a whole cry wolf phenomenon that could play out here. And just seems to me they're overly playing it safe. Unfortunately, that's the way it's set up. I mean, this is just the way it's set up. South Africa has been sort of punished because they've been very aggressive in understanding mutations and strains, and it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate because we would take their evidence on the existence of Omicron, but then we wouldn't really flesh out what their actual experience is as it relates to Omicron, so that we could maybe have a bit softer reaction to this darn thing. For public health officials, what's the best approach here?
Right, and that's why, I think I would take a different approach, but I respect people who are in that position. But I would always just, like you say, talk about the science, say, hey, this is what's going on. It's spreading among unvaccinated young people, but it's really mild, and we need to watch and see. I feel bad. It's just, I'm not sure where we got this idea, even that, and this is more politics than science, but the federal government can stop a virus from spreading. I mean, the federal government can do policies. They can encourage research on vaccines. They can help facilitate making of masks and things like that. But I don't think mankind can shut down the spread of a respiratory virus unless you just lock people in their homes and seal them shut. So I think giving people the right information and saying we're going to watch it and we'll deal with it as it comes. I like how Pfizer says, hey, we can, within 100 days, we might be able to make a strain-specific booster. Hey, that's great. That's the sort of thing that I think the government should get in. They shouldn't downplay it, but they shouldn't overreact either.
So some scientists are saying of Omicron that because it spread so quickly, that it could actually displace Delta. In the short time we have left, is that possible?
Yeah, that's possible. Whatever is the more contagious strain can definitely take over the one before. And as I said, if people are less ill, then they're more likely to interact and spread it unknowingly. But that may not be a bad thing. I want to remind your audience of the last minute we have here that there are 4 or 5 seasonal coronaviruses that are quote unquote common colds that cause the sniffles and make you feel bad for a day or two. That's the normal coronavirus. So this one is special. So if this one evolves into a mild common cold that's contagious, then that's kind of good. That's kind of what coronaviruses have been historically. I hope that's the case. We could be wrong. This thing has surprised us.
Yeah, no question about it. And we should not take Omicron with an ounce of salt. We should really pay attention, and maybe a grain of salt. We should be very careful and pay attention to what people are telling us. But this is some practical advice from Dr. Nicholas Conger. We'll see you again soon as this thing ramps up and see where we are.
Sounds good. Great talking to you again, Ricky.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right.
Have a great day.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.